Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Mike Loves Fanfic. So, we have done a lot of things right now, but let's see how the progress we have so far. So, I'm gonna show you my screen. Okay, right now, here are some of the things that I have done by far. So, I will look at. Okay, so um, what do we have here? We've done Gumlight Sword, so that checks out. Got red and blue. Over Vegas lights are winning nights. The sun's pining, and is guiding. Um, like, comment, subscribe. I've done already. So we have done, I think, two out of the. So how many? There are 19, right? So I've done 5 out of 19. Okay. So again, everything is shuffled, so we have no idea what would be. Okay. Today I'm reading this fic. And by the pick a wheeler or something. It's this one, chapter 7. Got me like spoilers. It is a soulmate and a flop, and it's all about them growing up. So this is the pick that I'm gonna be tackled today. That's all we have. That's all the information we need to know. Okay, so let's hop on to that chapter and see how this works out. Okay, so you got me like spoilers. It is 6,846 words, so this will probably take you an hour for finishing this. Okay, so the summary of this one shot is as follows: From the moment we're born, we're connected to a soulmate, our other half, a soul that we're bound to time and time again throughout our lifetimes. And every time we are reborn, the first words we'll hear our soulmate say is ink into our skin. Unfortunately for Keith, his words ended up being a spoiler for a well-known and beloved book-to-movie series. Man, I can't believe Dumbledore died. I think this is like Lord of the Rings, Hobbit stuff. I think this might be the spoilers that can oh, they ruin that for that one. Oh, Keith is always a movie ruiner. Yeah, mean spoiler. Okay, so this is a soulmate, right? This is a he think this is a modern. It's a modern setting, so on to the nows. And yeah, it's a fluff, and it's in soulmate A's. This is the ultimate universe for soulmates, where they written down on their skin whatever the words they have, and soulmates will write somebody write their skin, and then they'll have somebody. Okay, so now that I understand that now for soulmates, and it's referring to this fic that I had read before called the Marks We Make. This is kind of very similar, but this is very different from that. Okay, so without any further ado, let's start reading this fic. Okay, got me like spoilers. When he was born, the words written on his palm were too small to read, tiny, scrunched, and lost in the chubby folds of his hand. The doctors had tried to read it. He heard from his parents that the doctors tried to spread his palm using a magnifying glass to get a closer look, but they could only make out a couple words. They documented what they could on his birth certificate and handed it to his parents with apologies. As he grew older and as he grew, so did his soul mark. Two lines of smudged black ink began to take form, became legible, day by day, year by year. His parents updated his birth certificate, but he remembers them doing so with furrowed brows and pursed lips. He remembers the odd looks they would give his right hand when they thought he wasn't looking. Strange looks caught in the corner of his eye. Strange expressions caught beneath the shaggy curtain of his fringe. Unspoken words that turned to smiles when they caught him looking. Turned up a fraction too bright. When he was old enough to understand the meaning of Soulmate, but too young to read, he asked his parents what it said. He remembers the way they shared uncertain looks before picking him up, sitting him on their laps, holding him close while they said part of the magic was growing up and learning to read himself. So he waited. He worked hard when they started to learn their letters to school, focused on the strange combination of letters inked into his palm. He remembers the day he finally was able to read words, the first thing he could ever hear his home say, his perfect match. It is his destined partner. Man, I can't believe Dumbledore died. He remembers how the excitement and adrenaline had soured to deep-seated confusion. First off, we have, and this is the Multiverse. This basically describes about their birth soul mark, their soul mark. So yeah, so someone else will have to write it down, and it will write itself on its own. And the first thing that someone else, the perfect match, said, Dumbledore died. Or something. That's a spoiler, right? That is 100% a spoiler. He doesn't know it. We already know it. This is like an irony for us. Okay, let's get back into the story. The confusion didn't clear up as he got older. If anything, it grew worse, bigger, deeper, twisted, more complicated. That wasn't something that a child should have to think about, but Keith found himself thinking about it a lot. Apparently, the death of someone called Dumbledore was what would bring him together with his soulmate. From a tragedy would come a fated union. He felt strange butterflies at the thought of meeting his soulmate. Who wouldn't? But with that thought came the guilt, the realization that by looking forward to meeting his soulmate, he was looking forward to someone's death. Logically, there wasn't anything he could do to prevent his death, just as there was nothing he could do to prevent meeting with his soulmate. So he shouldn't have to feel guilty, but he did, but he didn't. But then he felt guilty for not truly feeling guilty. It led to a lot of strange, existential questions about the nature of life and death and their soul connections. The weren't questions children should ask, not something that children thought about. They were his parents and his teachers, but they understood why he was asking. He didn't exactly have a conventional child because of it. Run around, climb trees, scrap knees, get into fights, play in a river, ride his bike, crash his bike, look at the stars, question the nature of his existence and how he relates to that of others. His parents worried. They told him not to think about it too much, told him that the universe works in mysterious ways. He'd find out eventually. But that didn't stop him from wondering. It's basically the soulmate part of that one. So we get into some sort of this. This is Keith's, okay? This is Keith's point of view. Well, not say this is most of the key, but you'll get to meet what one of his soulmates. So I'm not gonna tell you a spoiler, but if I do, you'll see it. You'll see it. Now the word Dumbledore was on it. That's just he'll know. He'll know about that. Okay. Around the age of 9, he came to the conclusion that Dumbledore was a pretty weird name. He never met any Dumbledores, never heard the name spoken on the streets or in stores. He even spent several years looking through phone books when his parents weren't paying attention. All Dumbledores. And so he constructed two theories. Either this Dumbledore was a teacher or a pet. Teachers had weird names. Pets had weirder names. His thought process was flawless. By this time, his soulmate had become popular among classes. Everyone has soulmates. A lot of people had weird soulmates. Some were very common and plain. So, hey, do you know what time it is? What can I get for you? Oh, excuse me, didn't see you there. Some people had ones that were weirder, more unexpected. How many Oreos do you think I could fit in my mouth at once? I would probably punch a man for a donut. I wrote my paper drunk last night and woke up to my essay being titled, Real Monsters. There were so many that he had seen over the years. sharing soul marks on the playground with pride, brandishing them like one with a unique talent or trait. No running by the pool. Come here often? F off, Susan. I don't need your sass. But so few were actually unique. Most were common phrases, simple things, boring things. Can I borrow a pencil? I like your shirt. Hey, you dropped this. The one thing they all had in common was the fact that most gave the impression of a situation, enough of one that they could imagine what they would be doing when they met their soulmate. Something to daydream of, something to look forward to. Hey, name's Jeff. I'm your lab partner. Can I have a combo number 5 with a large Coke? Welcome, everyone, to this year's slideshow. Keith had never met someone else whose soulmark involved depth, and that made him unique. Made his soulmark mysterious, made his words popular on the playground. No one knew of a pet named Dumbledore. No one had heard of any teachers by that name. He was certain it had to be one of those. Okay, so that gives you this concept of the soulmate. As you can see from what you have saw, those are the most popular uh, fix. Those are like examples of what they're writing into someone else's arm. So I've never find some more weirder or some like basic stuff. And that's all the things that happen for when you have someone a soulmate or something. But that's I you probably know also any fix with the AU is soulmate AU that might work for all that Samuel. So he will definitely have an experience, and it still wanders with the word Dumbledore, right? Freaking Dumbledore. It's from the Lord of the Rings, and he have not watched that, to say the least. Okay, let's continue on. His world came crashing down at the age of 12. He was busy working on his math homework at the kitchen table when his cousin Shiro came crashing through the front door. Keith, he shouted, shivering over his feet and attempting to kick off his shoes. Keith, he's at the table, his mom called in the kitchen. Next thing he knew, Shiro was vaulting over the back of the couch, nearly colliding with the coffee table and practically charging toward him. Shiro, what? He didn't get a chance to finish. Shiro had one hand already digging through his backpack and slammed a book down on the table, right on top of Keith's homework. He blinked, eyes roamed over the cover. It wasn't familiar, not at the time. His brow furrowed, lips pursing into a small frown. Harry Potter? He remembers, looking at Shiro, even more confused, but the bright grin was missing. You know I do not like reading. Shiro laughed, loud and nervous. I know, but check this out. His bag hit the ground. Leaning over the table to grab the book, flipping through it rapidly, fingers scrambling through the pages, eyes are over the words. I know it's around here somewhere. Aha! Here! Keep! Look! He turned his filled face to key once more, slamming it down with finality that wasn't entirely necessary, jamming his finger at the page, right at the word. He gasped, grabbing the book and scrambling to his feet, nearly toppling backwards with his chair. What? He couldn't complete the word, let alone the fall. He just stared at the word at the pages, flipped through the pages, saw it repeated, over and over again. Dumbledore. He stared at Shira. I came over as soon as I saw it, he said, green white. We finally found the mysterious Dumbledore. He needs a character in the book. Shira words and in a small laugh. It's one of victory, excitement, certainly more than Key was feeling. Then it faded, slowly. Laughing trailed off as his smile slipped from his face. Several things passed over expression, realization, shock, frustration, weary, acceptance. Oh, that means Dumbledore dies. Put one heavy hand to his face, dragging it down so as the other perched on his hip. Talk about spoilers, dude. He just stared at Cheryl, the book, at the word that had been branded into his palm since birth, a word that had always held an air of mystery. Man, teacher, pet, a death that meant the meaning of his soulmate, and he turned out to be just a character in the book. He His gut bubbled, heat and anger and disappointment, and all the things ugly welling up inside him. He slammed the book down onto the table and shouted, "Fuck!" His mom heard, and he ended up being grounded for 2 weeks. And I made a mistake about the no Dumbledore's from the Lord of the Rings. And no, it's not. It's Harry Potter. This is what I get from not watching or reading some of the Harry Potter books. No, I'm old, guys. Okay, I'm too old for reading this book. I mean, it's one else. I know it's the most popular book, but I mean, I'm really dumb for that. I think he realizes that it's a character from Harry Potter, and yep, I think his soulmate spoiled Harry Potter for him. He just got grounded, and now he realized, yep, someone's spoiling that movie for him. Ouch. He met Katie when he was 13. He wasn't happy about being forced to go with Shira when he visited his friend Matt. Wasn't happy about what it felt like a goddamn playdate. He didn't need help making friends. He had, but he hadn't wanted to admit it. When they met, she sized him up, hands on her hips, eyes narrowed to match his. He stood his ground, arms crossed over his chest, scowling down his nose at her. She said he had a stupid haircut. He said she looked like a gremlin. She punched his arm. He pinched her neck. They smiled. Katie was missing 2 teeth, and Keith had a Lion King band-aid on his teeth. They spent the next 2 hours collecting bugs outside and putting them into a large mason jar that Katie had emptied marbles from. Then they set the bugs loose in Matt's room and laughed until they cried, but the older boys shrieked. Then Katie showed him her favorite hiding spot in the woods by their house when Matt and Shira came after them. They've been friends ever since. Oh, we have Katie and Keith. Well, Pinch and Keith. Well, closer friends to each other. They're like brother and sister. So sorry. Okay, let's move on. It might not have been so bad if Harry Potter hadn't gotten so popular. If the series hadn't grown out of control. If the franchise hadn't been spread and made movies and advertised to the point where even those who hadn't read the books knew the characters. Dumbledore, the old wise wizard, the first flippant character introduced in book one, the headmaster, the old father figure, beloved, could do no wrong. Yeah, that flipping Dumbledore. And he knew his summer was about him. Because who the hell else would be named flipping Dumbledore besides a fictional character? A character that everyone loved. A character that was on a freaking shining pedestal in the series and throughout the fandom. A character that hadn't died yet because it hadn't even been flipping written yet. But Keaton knew that he would. He'd stumped short of his sword. He shied away from the palace and glares his classmates sent him when they realized what was no doubt going to be the plot twist of the upcoming beloved series was already ruined for them. High school was a pain in the butt. Every teacher he seemed to get in their head that they needed to start classes with a break the ice share session. They always had to say their name, maybe a hobby, maybe a random fact about themselves, maybe their favorite kitchen appliance, and when the universe was feeling particularly cross with him, they had to share their soul marks. Most people were proud of him, eager to show them off. Some were shy, some were embarrassed, but none was adamant about refusing to share as Keith was. He got detention a few times for attitude problems. Not his fault the teacher pushed the issue and he stood his ground. On the times they really pissed him off, he shared his homework anyway, reveling in the groans and glares of his classmates, giving spoilers that had even been written to a beloved and popular series purely out of spite felt good in the moment. But it hadn't earned him any friends. He started wearing fingerless gloves. If he was asked, he said it was because he thought they looked cool, and he did. But aesthetic was an easy excuse for hiding so much from the light of day. He started to resent his soulmate in the universe for making him a walking spoiler. I mean, it was not King's fault. It was someone else who just ruined this stupid movie that they were reading. It's Dumbledore. I'm not reading all this, but in my opinion, yeah, this is which we're admitting that someone else is spoiling this one, and everybody just sprang out. I mean, Dumbledore. Who would have thought that someone is spoiling the movie? And it's God, yeah. Okay, whoever. I mean, whoever's song is gonna be not cool, dude. Not cool. Because I hate someone who's just spoiling somebody a movie and figure out who or say something. Because I'm trying to help back. Because it's something they have. When I read something and they have not tell me anything about it, just shush. Shush. Or I was gonna tell them about it, but I had to ask them a question if they watched it. They have not watched it, just go watch it. Otherwise, I might put a spoiler to everyone and probably gonna be ruined for it. So, world's your oyster. If you don't want to spoil, then don't go to Tumblr. Tumblr is the worst. Don't go there. And Twitter and any social media involved with it, don't, don't. Stay away from the spoilers. You're gonna regret it. You'll regret it. Okay, Katie ended up being a huge Harry Potter fan. Number one, huge fan. She loved it, wanted to talk about it, was upset that Kate wouldn't share that interest with her. She tried to get Kate into the books many, many times. He was adamant about refusing to do so, but he wouldn't tell her why, and that just made her pester worse. She was also adamant about finding out what his song said. It was something that friends just did. Shared songs, talked about that sort of thing. But Kate always kept his hidden. He tried to tell her that it had nothing to do with her. But that was just something he didn't like sharing with people that she wouldn't want to see anyway. She ended up slipping his glove up at a sleepover and reading his song while he was asleep. He walked up to her, hitting him with a pillow, screaming something incoherent about spoilers. Then she vowed to fight Kate Solomon when they found him. Oh, Kate is gonna beef up with this. No, the soulmate of Spawn in this movie. It's like you'll see it. You probably see it. Okay, next one. At the age of 17, Keith said goodbye to Katie forever and welcomed Pitch into the style of his best friend. They started wearing thick bracelets on their left arm, effectively hiding the words that read, "Hey, are you Katie Holt?" Not that they had anything against their birth name. It was just uncomfortable having to stare at everything, inked in black across their inner wrist. Neither of them talked about it, but Keith knew. It was a whole conversation that passed silently between them, shared in a lingering gaze, soft eyes glistening in the light, a slight press of his lips, a knowing nod, a quiet solitary in feeling the need to hide their soul marks, no matter how different their reasons. We have Katie. There's used to be Katie now, and I already told you about the new name. Katie's just now out of the running. Now it's just a new name, Pidge. Katie and Pidge, same person. Yeah, same human, but different names. Okay. Despite his reluctance and stubborn refusals, he did end up reading the books and watching the movies. And yeah, okay. So many he was pretty firm about the fact that he was Gryffindor. So what? They're good books. He was still bitter about the whole thing though. Felt like this whole experience was tainted. Like he would never have the same childlike wonder that most people had when they got into it. He couldn't even enjoy it casually. It felt like every time he read it, watching it, thought about it, there was just this little bitter note in his heart, a little snide sneer on his lips, a hint of spite in the shadows that ruined the whole experience. And he knew he shouldn't, but he blamed his soulmate. Paige blamed his soulmate too, and then Matt, when they eventually spoiled it for him. Should have just seemed indifferent about the whole thing, but it had been spoiled for him since the beginning too. Point was, they all knew what was going to happen. Eventually, every time they read a new book release, They spent the whole time with nerves on end, waiting, wondering if there was ever going to be the time. It never was. Disappointment, relief, more disappointment. He was still a walking spoiler. Would still have to wait till at least next book release before he would meet his soulmate. Relief, disappointment. Okay, yeah, because this Keith is very disappointing. He's still just a walking spoiler. Can't wait to meet this, his soulmate because this is a oh oh we're gonna have a beef with this person. Wondering could that be? When the sixth book came out, Keith and Pidge went to the midnight release. Pidge wore a Kate Minos sweater with a Ravenclaw emblem. They even carried a wand. They couldn't get Keith to dress up, but he did agree to wear his Gryffindor Quidditch shirt that they had gotten him at some point. They spent the evening crammed in a crowded Barnes and Noble, barely able to move with the sheer mass of people. They deemed the sponsored events to be extremely lame and ended up sitting in the maternity section because it was the only one that was empty. At midnight, they got in line and bought their books. He drove them back to Pages. We stopped at Walmart to stock up on snacks and energy drinks. They both ended up drinking too, and it comes 7 o'clock when both of them were jittering and able to close their eyes for longer than 2 seconds. They started to regret it. So they did the only thing they could do. They kept reading. By 8 o'clock, Pitch had finished the book. He wasn't anywhere close. They leapt off the couch, screaming wordlessly, softly, high pitched and crackly. Keith didn't even look up, just held up a finger and pointed to them. No spoilers. They climbed onto the couch, got all up in his face, grabbed his hand with both hands, and leaned in close. Dumbledore dies, they hissed, eyes sparkling. It took Keith 5 whole seconds to really process that. He knew because later Paige told him they counted. Holy crap! I know. Holy crap! I know. So repeated. Keith paused him off the couch and shoved his nose back in his book. He tried to read quickly, but his mind kept skimming over words without really letting them sink in, making him read paragraphs and pages. The whole time his hands were shaking, body trembling, breath coming short and clipped. It wasn't entirely because of the energy drinks. Maybe they shouldn't stay up all night for that one. And then realizing they kept reading the sixth book, and all of a sudden, yep, it's true. Harry Potter fans get triggered. If they have not watched fans, yeah, they're triggered. They are triggered for that one spoiling some stuff. Ah, never gonna live up to that. Oh boy, never gonna live up to it. The first year the following the release of the sixth book wasn't a fun one. It felt like he spent the whole time on edge, worry, body strung tight. The next few years felt like torture. He was no longer a walking spoiler. He could openly share his soulmate without really worrying about backlash. It was pretty common knowledge by then, but he got in the habit of keeping it secret, and he got in the habit of wearing his gloves. Torture part came in with the fact that he knew he could meet his soulmate at any time. When Harry Potter was brought up in conversation, Keith froze, body going stiff, lungs barely able to function, hearts beating loudly in his ears, eyes drifting over the people talking, trying to find those he had never heard something from, focusing on the guys, waiting to hear those words he had been born with. He never did. Disappointment, relief. After a while, he started to relax, started to give up hope. He still listened when he overheard people around campus talking about Harry Potter, but there was no longer the spark of hope and adrenaline. Just another disappointment. Just another sigh of relief. Then the movie was announced, and Keith felt that spark again. He wasn't sure what he would do when he finally found his soulmate. When he finally heard the words that haunted him, he didn't know if he would feel glad or simply angry, disappointed, relieved. I mean, yeah, he is in this an emotion of meeting this soulmate because this soulmate who was spoiling that movie. to Kiev. But that's just the thing. That's just the thing. They went to the midnight release of the movie. Keith very nearly backed out of it, but none of his friends would let him. So he ended up shoved into the backseat of Cher's car with Pitch, Matt in front of the seat, on their way to the cinema. He was reluctant and nervous, but overall he was glad they had manhandled him out of the house. He was on the edge the entire time. They were in a building full of Harry Potter nerds, nearly 6 theaters full of people, and there were high odds that his soulmate was somewhere among the crowd. He could barely focus on conversation while they were waiting in line. He was too attuned to the conversations around him, eyes darting, hesitating on the face of the guys he hadn't seen before. As soon as they said something that wasn't the words on his palm, he moved on, constantly searching, constantly disappointed, constantly relieved. By the time the movie started, he was pretty sure it wasn't going to happen. Halfway through the movie, he had nearly forgotten about it. When it was over, he was able to walk out of the theater and actually hold a conversation with his friends. He ended up leaned up against the wall as Paige, Matt, and Cher goes to the bathroom. Ailey scrolling through his phone as people filtered past him as they left the building. He wasn't really listening to the voices around him, not like he had been earlier, just letting the voices wash over him and away. Couldn't say what made him tune into one voice in particular. Couldn't say what made that voice stick out above the others. Couldn't say why his mind decided to focus on the voice. Loud but no louder than those around him. Deep but not too deep. Excited but not any more so than the rest of the crowd. Man, I can't believe Dumbledore died. He felt like he couldn't breathe. His chest tightened, lungs constricting. A shiver ran down his spine, violent and causing the whole body shudder. Fire. Fire radiating from his hand, burning in his palm, shooting up his arm, heat in his veins. He dropped his phone, but he barely heard it hit the ground. The ringing in his ears was deafening. His left hand shook as he reached for his right glove, fingers poking into the hem of the latter, nails scraping against his wrist as he yanked it down. His palm burned, sharp and hot, but was already fading. And as it faded, the words on his palm, the words he had been born with, the words he had come to love and hate, faded too, black to white. Words that had once been a tattoo, now looking like a scar, just a few shades paler than his skin, looking like a wound that had long since faded. Words still legible, but no longer overtly obvious. The pain was gone as quickly as it had come, but it echoed up his arm, tingling and buzzing. His soulmate, his words, soulmate. He looked up, head spinning, eyes darting over the crowd. Soulmate. You already know that, Lance. I know, but I forgot. Keith's eyes snapped to the source of that voice. That voice. It echoes in his head, pleasant timbre of it vibrating down his spine. Soulmate. How could you forget? It's kind of a big deal. I forget like half things I read, dude. You know that. Besides, it's been forever since I read the book, and it's not like I think about Harry Potter every day. Tall and lanky, long limbs, broad shoulders, tapered waist, pants that clung onto his hips, loose hoodie, unzipped, sleeves rolled up into several strong forearms, thin wrists, long fingers, light brown skin, short chestnut hair, messy, wispy, curling at the edges, upturned nose, eyes that crinkled when he smiled. Soulmate. I'm gonna tell Lori forgot. She's going to laugh her butt off. I remember like halfway through the movie. He pushed through the door, cutting off as he disappeared outside. View of him lost in the flood of people leaving the theater. He was moving before Richards taking a step. He shoved through the crowd, unapologetic and frantic, ignoring the shouts and protests that followed him. He slammed against the doors, pushing out into the night. Cool air sharp against his skin. Paused, looking around. There, stepping out of the sidewalk and walking into the parking lot with the rest of the crowd, walking side by side with a bigger guy, talking animatedly with his hands. Relief, followed immediately by anger. You! Keith shouted, stepping off the edge of the sidewalk and storming into the parking lot. Everything he had felt, all the confusion, the anxiety, the frustration, it all came crashing through him. A flood, chaos, building and churning into a pit of rage, one that burned through him, unable to be controlled. The words that had haunted him, the words that made his childhood strange, made him confused, made him a walking spoiler, made him hide his soul mark, turned his blessing into a shame, ruined an entire city for him before he ever got a chance to start it. The words were finally said, while he was happy that he had finally heard them. While his hands still tingled pleasantly, and a buzzing warmth settled in his gut, it was all overshadowed by a frustrated rage. He had always been told that he had a bad habit of reacting strongly to his emotions. He was starting to think there was some truth to that. He saw the moment his soulmate rose. Could have sworn he saw the shudder run through him. Say, saw the way his shoulders hiked up to his ears as he turned, eyes going wide as they locked onto Keith. You're the one! Voice was harsher than he anticipated, but beneath it all, there was a strange, breathless qual that they couldn't quite shake. His lungs still felt tight. He came to a stop in front of his soulmate, keeping enough distance between them to talk, but without getting too close. He didn't know what he would do if he gets too close. All his emotions were running too high, and it was hard to separate them. His hands were curled into tight fists at his sides, nails biting into the leather. He glared, brows furrowed and lips pursed in a fierce scowl. There was buzzing in his ear, heart hammering in his chest. His soulmate, Lance. His friend had called him Lance. Lance! Lance stared at him, eyes wide. He blinked, mouth open, then closed. He lifted his arm, staring down at his forearm before locking back to Keith. His brow pinched, lips pursing just slightly. It looked almost like a pout. You know, he said. His voice sent a fresh wave of shivers down Keith's spine. Roll his shoulders to shake the sensation. That's not really how I imagined that being said. You, Keith took a step forward, and it must have been an aggressive step because Lance slid backwards, hands automatically rising defensively. Keith! He stopped, turned to look over his shoulder as Paige jogged up to catch him. Dude, you dropped your phone, they said, lifting the device to question. What the hell are you doing? Pidge, he said, cutting them off and jamming his finger towards him. It's him. Pidge came to a stop at his side. Eyebrow raised, their gaze slid from him to Lance and back. Him? Him. He didn't know how to articulate. His mind was buzzing. His ears were buzzing. His heart was hammering. He was pretty sure he was shaking. He felt too much, and he felt all at once. But there must have been enough emphasis in his voice for Paige to realize what he meant. A spark lit up their eyes before they narrowed. Him? They asked, turning a narrow gaze to Lance. He took another step back. Whoa now. Let's just calm down, he said, making a motion with his hands. I don't really know what's going on, but him. Key confirmed with a nod. Holy crap! Pitched breath, then shoved his phone into his hand. I've been waiting years to do this. Then they're shoving the sleeves of their hoodie up to their elbows, taking a threatening step forward. Lance, the big guy, Honk, Lance had called him, was already stepping back, shoulders hunched, eyes worried. What's going on? I don't know. Pidge stopped in front of it and went up on their toes. Stabbing across his face, he echoed. Lance had snapped aside. They all froze. 1 second. Two. Then Pidge grabbed the front of his shirt, dragging him down to their level as they jabbed a finger close to his nose. He went across, eye looking at it. Distantly, he registered that as Q. Phew. Do you even realize what you've done? No, he said, slapping Page's hands and pulling out of their grip. He backed, pedaled quickly, but Page kept pace, charging after him. What are you talking about? I've been waiting years for this. What the? Oh my god. Pidge lunged for him. He scrambled backwards, nearly falling over his own feet. He turned, sprinting away. Pidge hauled butt after him. He shrieked, wordless, high-pitched. Pidge shouted, but Key didn't catch what they said. Hunk turned to him, asked a question. Key barely registered and definitely didn't react to it. He was left just standing there, staring chaotic storm inside him, watching his Pidge chase his soulmate around the parking lot. They dodged between cars, weaving through people, and causing a scene. Then Matt was there, picking Pidge off the ground and holding him up as their feet wheeled in open air. Pidge, what are you doing? He grunted, flinching as their flailing elbows came close to his face. It's him! Pidge shouted, jabbing a finger toward Lance, who stood bent over, hands on his knees, trying to catch the breath. Matt, it's him! Keith's soulmate! Matt turned to look at him, eyes going wide and mouth all open. Oh my god, he breathed. The spoiler king! What? Lance said, straining and putting a hand to his chest, while his Carl pitch. I did not. But then Matt put pitch down, and two of them were charging toward Lance. Hunk, get the car! He screeched as he ran, Pitch and Matt on his heels. Then Hunk was running off, but Keith barely noticed before a hand landed on his shoulder. He turned to find Sheer there, watching as Lance put a car between himself and Hulk's, looking victorious until they each went around different side. He let out a wordless shout before diving around a group of people. What the hell's going on? Cher asked, not so much angry as utterly confused. Oddly calm, given the strangeness of the situation. It's him, Keith said, eyes rolling back to hands. Him? Him. As in, Keith nodded. That explains why Man and Pitch look like they're about to rip him apart. Are they going to stop it? Keith's lips pursed, frown deepening as he makes a vague motion with his hand. He didn't know what he was feeling, let alone what to do. What he was certain of, however, was the fact that his knees felt weak and his throat felt constricted. She had just squeezed his shoulder and offered an understanding smile. With a screech of brakes, an all good Buick came abrupt sonic cell. Lance, hurry! They turned to see Hunk half leaning out of the driver's side window. Lance ran wide around a couple of parked cars, putting space between himself and the Hulks. He drove through the crowd, weaving expertly and shouting apologies. When he broke out the other side, he sprinted straight for Hunk's car. The front door opened before he even reached it, and Lance threw himself onto his seat. Drive, Hunk! Drive! The door slammed shut. The car peeled up as quickly as it could, people jumping out of the way. He watched it shoot out the parking lot. Well, Shears said after a moment's silence, that was unexpected. Keith grunted wordlessly. At least I got slapped in, Fish said, out of breath and chesty as they came to stand with him once more. Did you at least get his number? Matt asked, come to a stop by Pitch, resting an elbow on top of their head. Its eyes widening, mouth falling open as the whole new chaos and motions coursed through. Frick. Disappointment. Yep. We all knew that Keith is a spoiler king. Yep, he spoiled all of it, and now, wow, the halls are rolling over Lance's butt. Ah, boy, this is so funny. And I tried to read this through, and I have to read this through without me laughing it. So, oh my god, this story. Okay, I can't control. So, okay, so yes, this. Oh yeah, they're coming over. Oh man, after that movie coming out, this is so disappointment. That yep, Lance was the spoiler, and Keith, yep, knew it. Knew that this is the guy. It's him. Him. That. Oh, so insanity there. And the soulmate goes to wow. I could not even express any words more than this part, this portion. I can't even express it. Keith was pretty sure the employees thought he was crazy. He's seen the same girl that they counted 3 times this week and 4 last week. He's seen the same guy nearly every day. They had started printing his ticket before he even got a chance to ask. He tried not to make eye contact with them, but he knew they gave him a weird look every time. He didn't buy snacks. His wallet was already suffering from buying a flippin' ticket for Harry Potter every day for 2 weeks. He didn't need to make it worse with overpriced popcorn. He had, however, started sneaking in candy and bottled drinks. As he stepped into the theater, he glanced around. It wasn't as full as it was opening night, and not as full because it was nearly 3 in the afternoon on a Wednesday. Not exactly a prime movie slot. He sighed, trudging up the stairs to a middle row, taking a seat and sinking into it. It was going to be a bust. It was always a bust. This was getting him nowhere. He needed a new game plan, but he wasn't sure where to go from here. He knew nothing about Soulmate other than the fact that he liked Harry Potter, and he lived close enough to see it at this theater. He wasn't sure how many more times he could afford to come and see his movie. Hey, Keyblink turned to look down toward the front theater, but the only ones were walking up the depths of a small group of girls. Hey, why was that voice so familiar? And over the edge of his memory, insistent and compelling, and legs appear in his peripheral vision. He suddenly sees someone climbing down over his row, landing with an oof and stunning forearms before throwing themselves into a seat next to him. He blinked, suddenly faced with a sharp, angular face, messy chestnut hair, light brown skin, and dazzling blue eyes. Oh my god, I was right. It is you. His face softened then, head tilting just a fraction to the side, eyes lighting just a little as his lips tug up into a small smile. It's really you. Him. It was him. You're the one. He found himself saying, words slipping out from between his lips in a breathless rush, filling his lungs constrict. Something sparkled in Lane's eyes, smile curling into something a fraction brighter. Yeah, that's more like I was hoping for, he said, a breathless chuckle tacked onto the edge of his words. He didn't know what to say. He didn't quite trust his own voice. His throat felt thick, mouth felt dry. His stomach was twisting and rolling, chest fluttering, so he just stared, eyes flickering over Lance's face, trying to take everything in. Lance recovered faster, soft vulnerability leaking out of him, replaced by more casual confidence. I was starting to think I wouldn't find you here. And because Keith had never really had much of a filter, an idea of him not being around the theater at this point was ridiculous. He opened his mouth and said, this is my 14th time seeing this movie. Before he had a chance to feel even remotely embarrassed by that statement, Lance grinned, eyes wide and blinding, eyes squinkling at the corners. He was beautiful. He considered forgiving the universe for giving him a crappy soul mark. I'm on 15, Kibling. It's only been 14 days. Lance chuckled, turned his head to the side, eyes moving to the large theater screen as an ad played. He scratched the back of his neck with one hand. Yeah, well, I was really excited and might have gone twice a day after we met. Keith felt a small tug in the corner of his lips, felt it was unable to fight. Yeah, you still managed to miss me. Lance's eyes drifted back toward him, lips quirking to match Keith's small smirk. The universe can be a dick. At that, Keith couldn't help but laugh. He laughed louder than he expected to. Laughed until his eyes crinkled and his stomach hurt. He forced down to chuckles, putting a hand over his mouth to hide his mouth. He wasn't even sure why he was laughing. He chalked it up to relief. Giddy, unapparelled relief. Tell me about it. He finally managed to say, smile hidden behind a hand. Lance was grinning, bright, alluring. He put an elbow on the arm rest between them, leaned forward a little, tipped his chin downward, eyes still on Keith. Name's Lance. Keith. Keith. Lance said his name. He was tasting it on his tongue, trailed off, eyes going distant. He smiled softly. Keith liked how his name sounded when Lance said it. So, Keith. Lance's eyes focused in on him again. Smile quirking, voice rising playfully. Gotta tell me why your friends tried to beat me up in the parking lot 2 weeks ago? Keith snorted, huffing a short laugh, rolling his eyes. Instead of explaining, he peeled off a glove and held his right hand out, palm open. Lance leaned forward, taking his hand lightly between his own. His smile faded in his conversation, lips going lax, parting slightly. He turned Keith's hand toward the screen, leaning the light against Keith's skin. His touch was warm, fingers soft and grip delicate, as if Keith was something precious, as if he was just as awed by Keith's touch as Keith was by his. Then Lance was laughing, head thrown back and grin wide. Oh my god, are you serious? He let go of Keith's hand and tried not to be disappointed at the loss. He pulled his hand back, slipping his glove back on. With a smile like that and a laugh that made butterflies flutter in his chest, Keith couldn't really bring himself to be mad about his homework anymore. You spoiled book 6 for me before the book 1 was even written. He never imagined he'd be smiling as he said it, but he was. Oh man, that must have been so weird before the books came out. You have no idea. No, but I'd like to. Lance leaned in, elbows on the armrest, turned so his knees pressed slightly against Keith's leg. His voice dropped. A shiver ran down Keith's spine. I want to hear all about it sometime. Keith crosses over his chest, tilting his head back against the seat. still turned faced him. He felt a smirk tug at his lips. You had to make it up to me too. You ruined Harry Potter for me. Lance chuckled, tilting his chin up just a fraction. Eyes shifted over Keith's face, focusing for just a moment on his lips before his gaze returns to Keith's. I'm sure I'll think of something. He felt his chest squeeze, heart painful as it hammered against his ribs. His stomach twisted, gut tying itself in knots. His palms felt sweaty, skin oversensitive, not dry. He was far too aware of it as he licked his lips, especially when landscapes dropped. The lights dimmed and the trail started. Focusing the two then leaned back in their seats, face forward, turned away from each other. Keith barely paid attention. He had seen the trails far too many times already, and he was far too aware of the boy next to him. As the title faded onto the screen, Lance leaned over, shoulder pressing onto Keith's, voice hushed and close. Breath caressing she. I bet I can recite more lines than you. Glance. Keith glanced at him, tilting his head just a fraction, a smirk tugging at his lips. Lance too close. Too close. Not close enough. You're on. They spent the first 15 minutes in close, shoulders pressed together, sharing the armrest, whispering lines back and forth. 20 minutes in, their pinkies were intertwined, and Keith didn't remember who did it first. 30 minutes in, Lance's forehead was pressed against his temple as he laughed under his breath. And when Keith turned to look at him, their nose brushed. 40 minutes in, Lance kissed him. It missed, catching Keith right as he turned back toward the screen, hitting mostly cheek and the corner of his mouth. Keith turned back as Lance pulled away, searching for it to properly catch his lips. It lasted a second, barely a brush of lips, but Keith was pretty sure it was the best second of his life. 50 minutes in, and neither of them were paying attention to this movie anymore. Slouched in their seats, armrests pushed up and removed, Lance's arm around Keith's shoulders, and Keith leaned into the side. Shy touches and tender fingers intertwined. Kisses exchanged and darkened the leader. When the double death scene rolled around, Lance leaned in, pressing into Keith's ear and whispering, Man, I can't believe Dumbledore died. He laughed as Keith pushed him out of his seat, and Keith found himself smiling. Okay, that is it for this fic. We probably knew that one. That was book six, and there's some book probably, but that's very much it. Okay, we are done for this fic, and I thank you guys so much for listening and watching this video and reading along. So now that we finished that fic, got me like spoilers is finished already, so we're done with that. Next week we're gonna have again a pattern for SW first, and then we have another one shot, just a very clean one. All right, I'm gonna take you guys on a spin and see what will be the next one. So here we go. Okay, so we got spoilers, so we're done with that. Got so we're done with that. Finding done. Okay, we still have some few fixed that we have not been it. So we're down to let's see, 4, 7, 13. So we're down to 13. Okay. All right. So let's spin another one. Are you ready? All right. So oh, so yeah. So it's you got me like 0G. So that is the this very first one right here. It is rated T and it's a space camp and it's another mutual pining. We have so many mutual pining involved right here. And most of the fics have only there are a few of them. Some of them they're mostly on pining. Okay, so that's that. And you got like 0G, that's a space camp. So that's Kurobo. It's not Kurobo's mission. It's a garrison. I think it's a garrison thing. Yeah, it's a garrison. Okay, so we have done 7, uh, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 20. So next one is this one, number 2. Okay, So for the NSFW, I think I've done. Let's see what are the fixes that I've done so far. So I've done. Let's see, King of Fools. That was the part one, and I've done Get Me Like a Blizzard. So we've done two of those, and probably time to read another one. See what will be the next one I'm gonna read. Okay, let's get on to the second part. So we're done. Okay, so then the Blizzard one. All right, so we're down to 7 SW fix. So let's see what we're gonna land on. Oh boy, there. Okay, of needs and desires. That's the next thing I'm gonna read. It is oh okay. It's a post season 8, and there's a relationship involved, makeouts, and some grinding in the you know this. Yep, I'm gonna read this and this for next week. All right, that you see what are the next fic that I'm gonna have. I think it's time to end the video. So yes, I will see you guys in the next video, whichever comes first. I think the NSW is the next one on that little pattern. All right, guys. Goodbye.